make sure we get everything so when I record, it shows up all right. But this is our presentation, our career meetup on salary negotiation. Again, if you have a question, just feel free to just speak up. With me, sometimes the controlling this specific share screen, I can't always see if anyone is talking or if anyone has a question in the chat. But again, feel free to just speak up and ask any question you have. So focusing on salary negotiation. So the main idea of why you would want to negotiate with your salary is focused around having your worth and what you know your value is as an employee is really open to you as you are negotiating and realizing that you could be valued somewhere else more than you're valued currently at your current position or at your area of opportunities that you're currently working at. And so looking at, this is a quick little graphic that we surveyed new recent grads, and I say we, this is an infographic I found with my research for salary negotiation, but looking at how common it is for new grads to actually negotiate their salary. So 62% of new graduates are actually not wanting to negotiate for fear of rejection, of getting their offer rescinded, or from other areas that they really don't want to highlight, versus 38% of grads who are negotiating. And so again, the difference is it's very interesting to see 30% of women or individuals who identify as female actually negotiate their incoming salary when they're starting out as a new employee, versus 44% of men or individuals who identify as male negotiate their salary or are more comfortable negotiating their salary. And so again, we have the idea of the disparities between genders and what individuals feel comfortable with in their ideas of negotiating. But employers have mentioned that only 90% of employers never really take back their offer if someone wants to negotiate for an entry-level position. So for new grads, negotiating is a great way to, again, highlight your worth and know what you should really start out with as an individual working in a specific area or specific career. And biggest area that we want to highlight is most often 74-75% of employers will give a little wiggle room from their current offer or their initial offer by 5 to 10%. That's one area that I think really want to highlight and stress. But again, you see 80% of grads or students who are recent grads who do negotiate are successful in their negotiations. And so again, the biggest areas that we're going to highlight later on, scheduling your paid time off, your bonus, and then specific stock. Those are some of the real non-specific salary amounts or money that you actually see that you really will be able to also negotiate. So kind of moving on, negotiating a higher salary. Again, this is always a tricky situation or tricky question to really bring up to your supervisor, to your employer. But again, just kind of as we look at the cost of living for ourselves and for our families and our individuals that we have around us, kind of everyone's situation is different. You see that 39% of Americans always have anxiety about negotiating for a specific raise. And then again, that disparity between women or female identifying individuals versus men and male identifying individuals from 26 to 40%. Again, just some more information versus when 7% of women actually negotiate their starting salary or are comfortable versus men or male identifying individuals negotiating their starting salary or are comfortable as well. So just kind of knowing your worth and knowing your value is one of the biggest keys and areas that we're going to focus on with negotiating. So again, the key to a successful negotiation is to ferret out everyone's interests so you can maximize the outcome for everyone. And so this is Tina Sealing. She has a PhD in economics, and I forget which university I was intending to include her university on here. But again, just focusing on how to best involve everyone's interests so that everyone has kind of a benefit gain or net gain from this negotiation. And so when to talk about salary, this is kind of a cautionary slide. And we have three different areas that I really want to highlight. The first one is, can you please tell me your salary history? So with a salary history for an employer, oftentimes you may have trouble finding that when you're looking for employers or companies, organizations to work with. And you really want to make sure that you're getting your money's worth and you're getting the value that you know you deserve as you were kind of going through your job search. Did someone have a question? Okay, sorry. So some things to think about when you're talking about salary or negotiating your salary. Again, can you tell me your salary history? This is a question that interviewers will ask you. Oftentimes, new grads will have a hard time answering this because they've either been working part-time, or if they are full-time during their school or their coursework, it's not often an area that they really want to be working in, such as a grocery store or things of that nature. So here's a great way to kind of answer that question. I've just completed a degree and gained valuable hands-on experience through my projects, internships, field placements, and my salary history doesn't really reflect that. And so that's a great way to really answer that question as you're going through negotiations and you're going through interviews as a new grad. And so the second question, what are your salary expectations? And so this is a question that they're really trying to feel out what you're expected to be paid. Again, knowing your value and knowing your worth is important, but you also don't want to overshoot for someone who has your specific degree or your title and your specific area or career aspect. And so biggest things to focus on or easiest way to answer is, again, these are just examples, but I need to learn more about the responsibilities of the job and the benefits you offer before I can truly say what my salary expectations are. And so a third question, again, kind of proceeding with caution, I need to know what salary you want in order to make you an offer. And oftentimes employers rarely ask this, but just in the case of the fact they do ask you this, again, I can only evaluate the salary of what the total compensation is. So again, you're talking about what you're actually getting paid in net worth, but also specific days off, time off, vacation days, anything else, benefits. Those are all packages that you can get in that specific area for your salary. And then again, do you have a salary in mind? You can ask them. And this is often a good question for you to have in mind. And we'll have this last question here in a second in our heads for a little bit so we can answer that, what you have in mind for a salary amount. All right. Does anyone have any questions so far? And if I'm talking a little bit too fast, I apologize. I used to teach high school social studies, so I'm kind of used to always just kind of being all over the place. But kind of as we move forward, preparation, there are 4 salary factors that you also want to take into consideration before you start negotiating or looking to negotiate, or before you have everything ready and set to negotiate. And again, ultimately, your salary consists of the market rates for the job, the assessment of your specific qualifications, which again, this is anything tied to your degree, any certifications you may have, anything that is an additive bonus for that organization or that business. Again, the employer's budget. It's always great to prepare and really utilize your network and looking at what jobs are available in that specific area at different companies and how much they're getting paid. Glassdoor, Monster.com, LinkedIn, those are great areas to really see what people are getting paid in those areas and how to know your value at that entry-level position or that specific transition to a new job or a new promotion in that specific field. And so again, last area is your skill in negotiating. And so again, this is your comfort level, what you feel is best for you as an individual as you are negotiating. All right. And so I like to show this just as a little graphic, because you're making an impact as you are negotiating, one for yourself, but also for your company or organization, because you have to worry about the necessary preparation and the amount of work it takes to ultimately build up to what you really get with a full negotiation. All right, so let's look at step one with our negotiating our salary. So preparation, it's always important to come in prepared, knowing what your value that you estimate that you're worth at that specific time. And again, at your point in your career, whether it's you having just completed your bachelor's degree or you completing your PhD and looking to work in that specific field. Again, that's always gonna be preparation for your first step. So you always want to determine your worth. And this is, again, looking anytime you start an interview, you always want to make sure that you're looking at what they're paying their employees at that current moment and how they handle specific situations. So again, determining your worth, if you want to work for a company or organization that right now is not treating their employees the way that they should, especially in a crisis or a pandemic that's going on right now, that's something that you want to really ask and evaluate for yourself. Is it worth getting paid X amount of money if I'm being put in a situation that may cause me to be sick, or that I may be treated unfairly later on? And so again, that's how you determine your worth, and again, what you feel you know your worth, and again, making sure that you have that higher expectation for yourself. And don't undersell yourself. Make sure that you are advocating for yourself. Again, that's one of the biggest areas that I want to highlight and stress for this negotiation aspect. Again, and then looking at creating a realistic budget. So this is really great for you. What are your, when you graduate or when you're looking to transition to a new job, what are your payments that you have? Any credit or any debt that you have, car payments, loans, anything that you may need to pay off, and how is that going to factor into rent, to utilities, food, gas? Those are all really important aspects to really think about a realistic budget of how much can I make for myself to pay off everything I need to pay off, but also have a little money to either save, put into a retirement plan, put into looking at other loans, or looking to buy a house. And so that's kind of where you really want to highlight your budget and having a realistic budget. And then again, just practicing before you actually start into the negotiation, making sure that you have all your materials ready, you have the numbers that you've researched, the facts and figures that you have available to you and to your disposal, and making sure that you have those ready and you're confident in what you're going to ask for. And so again, we have this little graphic of what are your needs. So what do you need to pay off or complete with your specific budget? What are your savings and debts? Again, what do you want to save and how much do you owe? And what do you really want? So again, your needs and your savings and debts are really what you need to value more than your wants. If you want to save some money every year to go on a 2-week vacation abroad, that's perfect. But again, you really want to focus on what you need as an individual to pay off and to be valued, and again, your savings and your debt. And so again, thinking about other non-salary, again, non-money that you really see. You have health insurance, you have 401k contributions, retirement plans, anything that you can really focus on that isn't part of your take-home or your initial payments for your job. And then again, focusing on any skills or any qualities that help add your specific value. If you're bilingual, or if you have a specific skill that is very highly coveted in that job or that field, that's something that you can really utilize to your benefit as you are practicing and preparing for your worth and for your salary negotiation. And so one of the biggest things we'll talk about here in a second is what's the lowest salary that you can really afford versus kind of the area where you have to say no to that job, even though you may want to work for that company, but they just aren't offering a fair value to what you're worth. Again, knowing when to say no or knowing when to walk away from a job is very important, because again, that situation is there for you to know your worth and your value. And one of the biggest things, if you're interested in looking at what you're going to get paid, and how much you can afford is a really great tool. Looking at this area, we have what we call the North Carolina Paycheck Calculator, and all states have this. And this is a really great tool to utilize in paying off your debts and making sure that you know what you're paying for in allowances for your tax refunds and your taxes for that specific state. And so you can see the specific details of what your taxes are for a payment. And so this is for just a random number, 39,443. Let's type in 4,000 or 40,000. And so what is that overall monthly payment or take-home pay? So this is what you'll get every month from that take-home pay if you're making 40,000 a year. And so this kind of breaks everything down by your taxes, state taxes, and then your tax deductions if you have any. Again, these are all included or things that you can add or change yourself. So if you know that you're going to have $100 in vision insurance, that's something that you can add. And again, it changes and adjusts based on what you are really playing around with these specific numbers. And again, it goes over 401k, looking at your life insurance, your tax deductions, and overall take-home salary out of 40,000 is 79.63%, or $1,327. So this is a really great tool to utilize what you're going to be paid and how much you're going to be paid and where that money is going. So again, this is smartasset.com, and then each state has one. But if you Google Smart Asset or North Carolina Tax Calculator or Paycheck Calculator, that's a great tool to utilize for yourself. And so kind of going back to our presentation, I want to highlight what we call Batna. So this is just, again, for some reason, education loves to include a lot of acronyms, but Batna is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So this means that this is kind of a compromise of all agreements, all areas, what's the best solution for everyone involved. And so what's the best way you can do when the other party doesn't negotiate? So someone is unwilling or does not want to negotiate at a specific time. This is one area that you can really highlight. Again, taking those not take-home pay values or areas that you really can utilize aside from your take-home salary. So again, days off, vacation, and improvements in your 401k plan, your retirement plan, looking at other areas that you want to really highlight for your specific value and your worth. And so figuring out if the best alternative to a negotiated agreement is possible. Are you the only candidate? Do you know that you have specific qualifications or areas, certifications that make you the best candidate or the only candidate? Again, do you have any special knowledge, or are you more idealistic in a specific area for that program to improve it or improve that business or company or organization? And so, again, this is just an idea that is mentioned of how to come up with an opportunity to bring up negotiation in different offers than just focusing on your salary. And so other items, other ways you can negotiate, again, benefits, and I've mentioned a lot of these throughout the presentation, but your time off, your schedule, work hours, the flexibility of how often you work, your specific title, your wellness perks. So do you get offers to any gyms, or do you get your gym membership paid for, something of that nature? Any professional development funds. If you want to travel to a conference, will they pay for it? If you want a new computer at work or a standing desk, that's something that you can get. That's part of a negotiation. Furniture, tools to make you an improved employee. Again, moving expenses. If you're moving across the state, are they going to help you pay for that? And then looking at any tuition benefits. If you're working for a government program or government area, do they offer any local stipends for you to go back to school or get another degree? And again, medical time, and then childcare. So these are all areas that you can really negotiate, and you should be negotiating to, again, know your value and know your worth. Do I have any questions? All right. So this is one of my favorite aspects to talk about when talking about salary negotiation. It's the Zopa, the zone of possible agreement. So this is the Zopa for you as an individual. So what is your scale of what is the lowest amount possible that you're going to accept as an offer. And again, this includes your salary plus all the other benefits we talked about on this page. What's the most amount that you could offer or you could ask for in that specific field? Again, your specific job, career, your title, they're all going to be different. That's why you want to do your research. But again, you want to find what we call the anchor or the sweet spot of what's the best agreement that you can get. And so this area right here in between these black lines is your zone of possible agreement. And your anchor is always going to be within that top 25% of your reasonable upper limit, or the most that you could gain within that salary negotiation. And so again, this is where you kind of start with your anchor and looking at how you have room to be flexible. Again, you always want to focus on going up rather than going down, because you want to know your value is higher than what you're expecting. And then again, this is kind of that idea of what we talked about before. When will you walk, or where you will leave that negotiation or that job offer if they are unable to kind of fall within this area between your anchor and your reasonable upper limit. And the reason why it's reasonable is, again, you have to think about every aspect of your job and your life that are going to connect. So if you're living in New York, the rent and prices to pay for a house, or really an apartment, are going to be exorbitant. And you really want to make sure that you highlight that. And based on the prices, based on the areas that you're looking to live, that's all to scale that you're really going to have to focus on. And so making sure you know that and you know your value and your worth is important. All right. And so looking at actually starting and initiating the offer when you're looking to negotiate, you want to make this a collaborative effort. You don't want your employer, your supervisor, to feel like they're being undercut or they're being attacked. And so you always want to come in to that meeting or that opportunity to a really clear head, open-minded, making sure you stay calm, cool, and collected. Those are my 3 favorite C's. And so again, either getting hired, getting a new promotion, those are all aspects of negotiating your specific salary. And so this is one area, is you want to make it about them. You want them to feel valued as well, because they're looking to keep you or hire you in whichever instance. And again, what do you have to give that if you don't feel valued, or you don't feel that your worth is being truly honored at that organization or that company, you want them to feel like you are knowing that they are something that you really want to be a part of, that organization, that company, what be it. And so thinking about using we instead of I. So this is a great opportunity for us, because because we can be very good aspects for each other, very good variables, valuable, and we can help each other out in different ways with our different qualifications. And again, how you want to ask for that request for a salary negotiation. And so again, your salary research, all that preparation that we talked about before, that's the other evidence that you really want to highlight, saying that this is something that I've done a lot of research in, and really want to highlight that we can come to a consensus to really make sure that everyone is getting paid their due diligence, and making sure that they are being valued and they are staying at this organization or company. And so making sure that if your supervisor or employer says no on meeting first time, that's okay. Just kind of be respectful, don't get angry, that calm, cool, collected, just being persistent. If they bring it up one meeting and then you have another meeting in a month or in 2 weeks, making sure that you bring up that idea, and again, presenting your case in a calm and cool way, and making sure that you have everything in writing. So never take verbal agreements, always have everything in writing before you leave that office or that room when you're talking to that individual about your salary. That's always important, is in a final agreement, you always want to make sure that you get it in an email, in writing. You want to make sure you write it out and you have it. If you have it in an email, print it and keep it. That's one of the biggest areas that I really want to highlight. And so again, as I mentioned before, Our tone is calm, cool, collected. You want to be positive. You want to be very collaborative. This is again about you and your value and what you're worth. And so looking at all your qualifications, if you have a master's degree in a job that doesn't require one, that's one area that you're very qualified and you can leave to a different employer, different organization that will pay you what you're valued. And so you want to make sure that you have aggressive goals, but not aggressive behavior, meaning that you have high standards and high value of what you're going to be doing in that organization. And ultimately, organizations want to keep their employees as long as possible. And so those aggressive goals can be both for you, but also for that organization and that employer themselves. And so this is one area that I really like to highlight is reframing what negotiation actually is from competition. So saying it's a competition between you and the employer to let's problem solve how we can both handle this together and how we can take this on as we are negotiating my salary, but also looking at how we can keep everyone as best, again, going back to that agreement, that best possible agreement. And then looking at incentives versus threats, you really want to incentivize and you want to be incentivized versus them threatening you to say, oh, we're going to fire you if you ask for another salary raise. That's not something that you really want to hear. So they want to have incentives. They want to provide those programs, those benefits, those days off to you as an individual, as an employee, versus them threatening to, oh, we're going to fire you if you don't stay for what we're paying you. And so we have what we call affable versus competent. So again, how do you demonstrate how competent you are in a specific area or specific skill without being flashy, arrogant, or aggressive that you're the best at what you do? And you may be the best at what you do, but you don't want to highlight it or frame it in that form of reference, and making sure that you're being kind, calm, and natured in that area of, this is a great skill that not a lot of many individuals have in this area or this organization. And so this is one thing that I really want to highlight and utilize in the future. But if I'm not valued here, I know that other organizations will be able to really use this skill or this competency. And so being persuasive, this is again part of that calm, cool, collected. Your research, your preparation, everything you've done up to this point before you got into the meeting and now you're in the meeting, using that idea to only have your interest in that organization and staying in that position or wanting to get hired by that organization or company. So that's one of the biggest areas you want to focus on with your research. You don't want to use this research or this understanding of what you've learned to try to get a raise to leave the company or leave the organization. And so biggest thing is you always want to be objective. Again, that calm, cool, collected mindset. You don't want to bring in emotions or opinions into this. You always want to state the facts and what's going on in the job market or the area for that salary that you should be paid for and that you should be negotiating for. And so creating a compelling rationale, again, explaining why you would like a salary increase, negotiating your salary is, again, we talked about this before, but the increase in rent, the increase in the housing market, the increase in childcare, it's expensive to have all these things, your savings, your debts, everything that happens. You may have an unforeseeable circumstance where you have to take care of a family member or a friend, and that's something that you need to take time off for. How are they willing to be able and flexible to work with you? And so again, having different ideas or more than one outcome is a great way to really be persuasive in your salary negotiation. So not just having one mindset or one number that you're looking at, thinking about, if I have a lower number, do I have more days off? If I have a higher number, do I have less days off? Those are kind of different packages, in quote, that you can really think about, or outcomes that really make it flexible for you and the employer. All right. And so this is kind of where that research also comes into play, is you want to anticipate your employer's needs and what you're going to look for and what they're going to offer you. And again, that's part of your research and what other organizations may be paying their employees in that same field. And again, how well have you been in that company or organization? Or if you're a new grad looking to be hired, what have you done that shows that your quality of work, your experiences are great and that they want to offer you that job? And so again, the responses of no, or we can talk about that within your first year, or as you transition to your new position, we'll be able to get that. Again, that's one thing that you really want to really look forward to and think ahead, because you also want to focus on getting ahead of that no, or getting ahead of that. We'll talk about it later as the conversations change, because again, as I mentioned, you always want to get everything in writing. So if they say that we're going to talk about this in a year, that's something that you can ask for in writing, making sure. Just wanted to make sure that what we talked about when I got hired was true, that we can ask for, or we can look at how we change our offers for our employees. All right. And so again, things to avoid. One of the biggest things, this is an old image that I found. The biggest salary negotiation mistake is to not negotiate at all. But again, things to avoid in general. Again, getting personal. You don't want to include any opinions or anything like that. You don't want to get upset, making assumptions. You don't want to rush through this. This is something that you have to be very calm, and you have to be very meticulous as you're going through your data, your information, and you're collecting all that to really present to your employer, your supervisor. And so negotiating via email, you never want to negotiate via email, because emails can be read in a negative tone. Hedging or being less direct, you always want to be direct, and you don't want to kind of be going around the bush, as they say, or hedging is why they call it that. And so being less direct, you want to go through, and you want to be direct in what you need or what you want. And so again, don't take things personally if they say no, or if they say we can't discuss that right now. It's okay. Again, you can be persistent, and you can ask for a salary negotiation offer in the future. Oftentimes, it depends on what's going on in that time frame, or that area, or that environment in the economy. And then over negotiating, you don't want to oversell yourself if you don't have the necessary qualifications and experiences for that specific area. And so that's kind of one of the biggest things to avoid. And so language is key. What you want to do is, when you're preparing your information, you always want to focus on your confidence and how you are going to take all the information as a whole. And so avoiding like and just, those are really great areas to really focus on. And qualifiers, this is kind of the idea of qualifications that you have that you can take somewhere else. You don't want to focus on leaving or focus on being negative that you're going to take your qualifications somewhere else. Again, I think maybe this is one thing that you want to avoid hearing. And the biggest thing is, instead of replacing, or when you're replacing but, you want to do and. And so I don't know if you've heard the old adage of everything before the word but is not true or incorrect. And so if you include and, it makes it more collaborative and inclusive. And so again, being articulate in your research and your intentionality of what you're saying and how you're saying it. And then again, focusing on specific amounts. You never want to include a range of 40,000 to 45,000. You want to have a specific number in mind, 43,500. That's a specific number. And so again, body language, as we mentioned before, being confident, being calm, cool, and collected. This is a great idea to really utilize within your body language and your language itself. But making sure that when you are meeting with someone, you always meet in a physical space that is comfortable for both of you. And again, you want to feel that you're in a safe and welcoming environment to be able to talk about that opportunities for yourself. And then again, you want to focus on being open in the room. Don't shrink down, meaning don't back down. Be confident in yourself, in your research, what you've done, and knowing that you'll be able to adjust and get ready to present your information regarding your salary. And so again, opening and welcoming, you want that to be known in your presence, and making sure that you want to show that you're willing to work with them. And this is going to be important when you focus on how you smile and how, again, how you're confident. And you can be aggressive and still be confident, but still be welcoming. And so that's one thing that you want to highlight. And I know I make a lot of facial tics when I don't agree with something, but working on that is very important to, again, help you really engage with them and focus on what you ultimately want to do. And so at the end, if you've done all your research and it still doesn't work, again, it's not you as an individual. You've done everything you can to really get your organization to really give you that salary that you feel you deserve. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not up to the specific employer sometimes. And so that's okay. And so choosing how you want to fight this salary, by increasing your pay. And so again, choosing your battles, and if it's within your zone possible agreements, that's where you have the idea of taking that position or leaving. And so you always have that choice. You can ask again at a 6-month review or 1-year review of your specific evaluations and your qualifications. And if you don't feel like they're meeting your zone of possible agreement minimum, or your minimum of what you deserve and you feel you need to get paid, then it's okay to know that you can leave and you have that opportunity. And so practicing negotiating an offer. So biggest thing, this was an activity that I like to do when I'm engaging with students in person. But these are some things that you can think about, and you can screenshot this, you can take a picture of this, but think about these questions and how we offer these. So explain why you should be higher on that range than their specific offer. Based on my salary, again, just practicing your pitches with others, with your family members, friends, making sure to always have that preparation. So making sure to have different offers available, again, multiple offers, your budget is taken into consideration. And then this is what I call deal with it. So instead of dealing with it, making sure to take what they're saying, changing it and making it more courteous or more appropriate to really have that opportunity to request for another opportunity to make a salary improvement. And so one of the biggest things is requesting other items in salary as well, and making sure that those are included in benefits to them, that you get those benefits or those other items that we talked about that are different than the take-home salary. And then again, engaging more positively. Here's what we could do, making sure you include that positive transition. And as last minute reminders, if there is a non-negotiable salary, again, most oftentimes they are ready to negotiate. They have a number that they have in mind that they're willing to pay you, but it's really just the point of you asking and you requesting to see if we can talk about the salary. And again, you never want to talk about your salary within your first interview, when you're really, that they've offered you the job, and kind of as you're transitioning into the environment and the opportunity itself. And then again, if you can't always negotiate pay, what can you negotiate? Other items that we talked about. And so what if they take the job back? Again, 90%, like I said, of employers will not rescind their job offer. And then again, this is a quick tip, is they want you to know your value and know your worth. So they want you to be able to show and represent that experience, those opportunities that you've done in your experiences as a student or as an employee at another organization, and looking to think that you're not greedy, you just want to be paid what you're worth. And so last thing is, what if the original offer is more than I planned on? So if you are negotiating and you're negotiating well, they may offer you something more than what you're willing or what you're asking for. And so that's going to be something that you can utilize. Maybe you can ask for more professional funds or more of that money to go to a conference or to, again, moving costs. Those are some things that you can think of if they do offer you more. And sometimes they will. All right. And so that is it. I hope this was beneficial to you. Again, if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I'm